You are on.
Great. Thank you so much, Nov, for the invitation again. I really appreciate it. Want to welcome everybody. It's a pleasure. This is, I believe, our second time presenting in the past year through Nov to the Review Council. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And I want to thank you, by the way. We got some excellent feedback that Nov shared from our first session. So I know that's something Nov tries to do. He really provides value to us as a vendor by tapping your excellent expertise and feedback. So I want to thank Nov, and I want to thank all of you who contributed to our first session, and we're very happy to be back with talking about some new HCM use cases and also reintroducing our solution and our technology. My name is John Kranz. I'm VP of Client Engagement for Ingentis North America. Just want to briefly reintroduce the company. The agenda will cover Ingentis, the background on the company, why I specifically focus on org charting, as I've been doing for the last 10 plus years as far as the HCM space, some of the key features, and then where it gets more interesting I think for everybody is when we actually map those features to how we can address specific use cases, human capital management use cases, which is really what we like to do with all customers. And then, of course, I'll wrap it up with some brief product demonstrations of our technology around those specific use cases, so you don't have to experience a death by slideshow. So we'll get into some live demos. So that's a little bit about the territory we'll be covering. Sorry if I talk a little bit fast, so please feel free to interrupt me. I'll be happy to take any questions as we go, and I know Nov did a great job of stepping in and asking questions or of people as well during the last session. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So a little bit about Ingentis, and I'll go quickly here. So we've been around for more than 20 years. It's a German-based, privately held organization with 1,500 customers worldwide. We actually recently, within the last 2 years, we have a North America operation based out of Petaluma, California. So we're both in Nuremberg, Germany is where we're headquartered with about 70 employees total, and we're also just north of the Bay Area near wine country in Petaluma as well. So we've been there just about 2 years now in North America. We have quite a few products in our business line, but we're going to focus on Org Manager. Org Manager is our flagship product. It's an automated org charting solution that works with all types of back-end data sources. I'll talk a little bit about that here in a moment. We also have Org Manager both for SaaS and for specific cloud platforms. For example, our solution is fully integrated and certified with the SAP Cloud Platform. So it's a solution that can work in various ways, whether it's an on-prem solution installed behind one's firewall, which we have quite a few clients that use it in that manner, or those that have it SaaS or in the cloud. And we're going to focus on Org Manager today. We have another product called Orginio, which is fully cloud-based, which is more of an introductory offering for small companies to do very straightforward, simple org charting. And again, if you have any questions, please let me know. History of Org Manager, it's been around for exactly 20 years. It's gone through several re-platforming and re-architectures, as I mentioned about the life of the product now being on SAP Cloud Platform. It's been fully architected to integrate with SAP Cloud. Again, we are doing 6 updates per year on the solution. So we have, Ingentis has 30 plus developers, no remote-based outsourced developers, but 30 plus developers who work on the Org Manager platform for our various offerings as well. It's available in multiple languages. We just most recently rolled out French Canadian. Again, a big focus is on our international clients and requiring multiple languages since we have a worldwide reach with the size of the companies that we work with globally. And as you can see, we're certified with a lot of the major partners out there as well. We can work with any data source, but we also do additional integrations or APIs, etc., for various companies. Maybe a good time to mention the company is based out of Germany, so as you can imagine, we have a very strong relationship over many, many years with SAP. So, for example, we've had integration with SAP HCM core HR module for many years. Starting in 2016, we got certified for our SuccessFactors org manager software, and we recently took the Sapphire Award for Partner of the Year for SAP SuccessFactors and the SAP Cloud Platform. So we're really pleased to get that award, because we know that ultimately that means not just SAP, but it means they got great feedback from our clients, or from their clients as well, as far as how our solution can add value overall.
John, this is Nov. Just a very quick one on the previous slide, the 17 languages. So you offer translation of your org charts and your templates and so on based on the data that's coming in, or once it's there, you translate it to a different language? I'm trying to understand
that's a great question. So we support, so the data sources that come in, they're going to be whatever language they are. They could be double byte characters, for example, for Japanese, etc., Asian markets. So we fully support double byte kanji. So the data is going to come in as the data is, and we support all those different types of encodings. That's not a problem at all. As far as what available in 17 language means specifically, besides supporting all the HR data as it is that the user interface, so all the menu bar options, anything that is an option in the user interface, that is what's localized in those 17 languages, if that makes sense, No. So it's the actual, using the software itself, all the commands are going to be in that person's language, but the data will come over in whatever language that data is in. But we can also translate the data as well. So we have examples where we have charts for Japan, where the charts show up not only in kanji, double byte characters, but also the English equivalent. And those are both viewable in the same org chart box, if that makes sense.
Perfect.
So very flexible. Thanks for the question. All right. So sample client list, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. So the typical logos, very happy and pleased to be growing, continue to be growing. So cutting to the chase, why org charting as a solution? So given the market space of workforce analytics, advanced, digital transformation of HR, org charting is a pretty, one of those older terms that's been around for years and years. So why push org charting as a solution? So really, one of the main reasons for that is, again, and this is based on UI studies of dealing with data, is that especially amongst HR and amongst organizations, everybody's quite familiar and feels very comfortable dealing with the concept of hierarchies. When you're dealing with hierarchies, or you're navigating through hierarchies of, say, an organization, whether it's cost centers or business units or departments, etc., the concept of having hierarchies to actually visualize your data and to see roll-ups of your data, that's a very natural way to communicate information. It's I would say it's almost more it's less natural using Excel spreadsheets where everything's sort of table-based and forced on you a certain way. And I've seen Excel tables used in some cases for HR when they try to show data from a hierarchical standpoint, and they try to force sort of a org tree structure in a spreadsheet, in a table. It can be done, obviously, but when you see the examples, in case you haven't seen our solution or you haven't seen some of the advanced use cases for org charting, I'm hoping you'll agree that yes, I can see this makes a lot of sense. It has a very natural feel to it as a way to view information that's not overly technical, it's not overly complex. You don't need multiple consultants to get a debrief of how to read the data or how to massage the data. It's meant to be extremely easy to use. Another benefit of org charting, and this is more about the technology than org charting itself, it's more about what Ingentis brings to the table, is that, and several other vendors in this area, they also can do the same thing, is working with multiple data sources. So if you're using certain solutions and you want to bring together data that perhaps you have ADP payroll, but perhaps you're using Oracle in the back end for other needs, and perhaps you've also got some flat files, spreadsheets, CSV files, where you're tracking your succession data or contingent workforce data, etc. What's very nice, which this is one of the main points, one of the key benefits of the solution that clients recognize, using the org charting solution is a very natural, easy way to bring all the data together through that hierarchical relationship structure that we help build based on key fields. And now you can bring together all this disparate data housed in multiple data sources in one place. And then we could automatically update that data, just putting it on a schedule. So if it's not real time, we can make it near real time by accessing, and usually we do data refreshes overnight, pointing at a directory that has a bunch of files in it, for example, and then our APIs, our ODBC queries would work with that as well to bring all the data together. But it all comes down to being really simple and easy to use and a much lower total cost of ownership for the customer overall.
So John, this is Nov again, as always. Sorry about that. So as you're talking about this, one of the more popular situations I'm seeing these days is the fluid organization. And so in all honesty, if as a customer, I have ways to designate teams or different type of pseudo organizations, as long as I have that in my system and bring that to Ingentis, you could then show those team setups as an org chart.
Exactly. So what we like to say is any type of an object that we have access to that has some type of a key field relationship. So for example, in the United States, usually it's person-based reporting. So the key field might be the employee ID. But also say if it's in the SAP world or other solutions, it might be position-based management where it's the position ID, and there's certain benefits that go with that. But in your case, Nov, absolutely. It could be based, again, it could be cost centers, it could be any type of an object, as long as there's some type of a key field relationship we can establish. And a good example is like O&A analysis of networks. I know, for example, Martin Hoyes. Martin is very deep in that area, much deeper than me, but any type of a relationship analysis, whatever that data point is, there is going to be a relationship with teams. The old way of doing it is through what we call the matrix or dotted line reporting relationship, and we can visualize that. But just as well, we can also display those different teams as well. We've worked with some energy companies, for example, definitely done some good proof of concept work with them where they have the concept of those dynamic teams working specific projects in the oil industry as one anecdote for you, if I may. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Sure. So let's go ahead and move on. Oh, find my cursor. Sorry, I had to find my cursor again. There we go. So we are more than org charting, however, we're going to look at some org charts. Again, obviously, that's can't escape that. And again, I think it has great value, but we do have other ways to visualize data. So one thing to keep in mind here, of course, there's some very extensive advanced solutions out there. I'm talking about advanced business visualizations, but the main point here is through an org charting solution, we have the flexibility as far as our layout structure and how we deal with objects. In this case, we're looking at a screen of a department in Germany. It's looking at a cost center department that's designated as Germany as the departmental object or business unit, if you will. And you can see we're rolling up all this data, all this HR, HCM data through whatever the data sources happen to be. But again, we're not just wedded to having to have an org chart view. If we have line managers or department heads that feel more comfortable with this, the standard dashboard look and feel, we can definitely express data in that way. And if you notice on the left panel display, we do have that tree diagram where I can navigate, as long as I have access to see it, that is, I can navigate to a different org structure, org unit, and then the dashboard will auto update with real near-time data. So just to give you an example of a way to see data outside of a series of connected org chart boxes, if you will. Another example, which is extremely popular, this gets used, I'd say, the most in our solution. Once you say you're stepping away from an org chart view, the second most popular view we have is what we call here, which is the sunburst chart. And just to explain it briefly, because I'll get into it in the live demo portion today, we're looking at a top-up unit called Mistech Inc. That's that inner circle core. I may have navigated down a certain structure of a multinational company where one of the head operations is called Mistech. So maybe I've gone 4 layers down, but now I'm at Mistech. deck. So what I can do now is I can pull up business rules. I can do some visualization rules as shown on the left. So let's say I want to do data discovery with an organization that has, say, 50,000 plus employees, and there's certain data I'm looking for, certain conditions, like show me departments that do not have, that have open manager supervisor positions, as an example. So that's been selected here in this screenshot. We select no manager position, and we now see highlighted in that orange color, those are the departments that have open manager supervisor slots. So I can navigate to those departments further, look at the org charts for them, look at the open positions. It's just basically a way to do data discovery very quickly, to discover data. And it works great, because if I had just an org chart view, it'd be extremely difficult with thousands of employees to visualize this using a standard traditional org chart. So this is a very popular view that's used by most of our clients. Then, of course, everything's mobile compatible. The resolution here is, I apologize, a little low because I made the image a little larger than 100%, so it pixelated a little bit, but everything we do is HTML5 compliant. Of course, when you get to a smartphone, which has a very small form factor, we can do additional configuration work to the user interface, so the data will be structured slightly different than, let's say, if we had a tablet or if we had our laptop, where I could reposition some of the objects. In this case, we have a much more narrow area of screen display, but again, our solution is very easy to add that mobile component where we recognize it's a mobile user, and we can leverage a different layout just for that mobile user while they're online. So again, different layouts are available outside of the standard org charts. That's the main point. When it gets to the org charts itself, and why this is where, again, we're popular, looking at the various benefits of a solution such as Org Manager. The first one, the most obvious one, is there's thousands of companies that are using Visio today or PowerPoint to do their org charting. Yes, you can definitely get it done. It's quite flexible, because literally it's going to do whatever you want it to do that you're actually doing. The disadvantages is that you're basically draining your data, you're draining your resources away from other duties that they could be otherwise be doing if they had automated org charting, where they wouldn't have to do anything at all, just the reports would be right there for you. So that constant strain on HR resources stops by basically making these reports available in an automated fashion. And having unlimited org chart design options basically gets into the use cases I'm going to get into. If I didn't have unlimited, or put it another way, if I didn't have very flexible options, which we're going to see in a moment, that would really limit me in terms of how I could tackle and address various HCM use cases, which we're going to see later today. And then visualization, of course, of the talent management data is very important. I'm going to actually give you a use case today that is focusing squarely on visualization of the talent management data as well as successors. So again, all these data points, seamless integration can be to multiple data environments, not just one data source, but multiple data sources. And of course, we support very complex Boolean-based search, nested search, advanced printing capabilities, including printing out the PDF with hot links, supporting various add-ons, etc. So very flexible in that way. So with that, I want to change gears and actually start introducing some of the use cases, and actually some of the use cases we covered in our first session. So as you see here, for some real-world use cases, we've already covered 3 of them in our past session note. So I'm not going to be belaboring these points in detail. So open headcount management, D&I is a huge topic of interest right now. And of course, same as organizational change and design goes. But for today, we're going to do a deeper dive on managing the aging workforce, which we like to call retirement eligibility, as tracking that is the key metric that comes out of that as far as the aging workforce. And then, as I mentioned previously, visualizing talent, in this case, talent flight risk specifically, and succession. So those are the 2 we're really going to focus on. But just as a refresher, this is what we covered last session. So the way we tackled open headcount management, I just have one screenshot for each. This was a use case, and again, a lot of this work came out of working with a international worldwide bottling beverage company. They had well over 100,000 open positions in their system because they had stopped managing and maintaining all their open positions, so their system was an absolute mess. So they were looking for a way to visualize open positions. So the way you can see that is where the red arrows are pointing at the bottom at those red or colored numbers. So if I focus, for example, on corporate finance advisor, there's a 65 number there. That shows you the aging of that open position. And to the right of it, there's a mouse hover. So I can see for that position, how many days it's open, what the budget is for the hiring of that position, and who the hiring manager is. And the whole concept, and again, there's a lot of flexibility in the design for the use case, but it was really all about, I need to get better visibility into all our open headcount, not only current open positions, but positions that will be open in the future or positions that we plan to add in the future. So having visualizations, and again, you can see we also have metric counts for headcount. All the headcount metrics are in the departmental boxes as well. So there's a lot of data here that we're basically rolling up at the departmental level to help us track and manage our open headcount. So that was a little bit about what we covered last time we were together. Same goes for diversity and inclusion. So in this case, we talked about sort of those 5 pillars or dimensions that the federal government mandates. So those companies working with, in the public sector, there's 5 general areas, which you can see here off to the right side in the right panel. We have those 5 categories, which are persons of color, the diversity metrics, looking at gender, age, disability, veteran status. And you can see also in the chart legend off to the top left area, we did some benchmarking. So what we're able to do with this view using Org Manager, we're not just showing the composition of the workforce, but we're also giving you a measurement of how your organization is performing against any goals or benchmarks that you have established for diversity. So in this specific case, if we look at the chart legend, that is our benchmarking that we're using to do index scoring to begin with. So you can see we've got in the chart legend, we've got ethnicity of 40%, gender being female 50%, age, which is age 40 or over or older, is 30%, disability or persons with disabilities is 12%, and veteran status is 8%. So the way this works specifically in this visualization is any index numbers you see here, and they're color coded as well. If you score above 100, that means you're above that benchmark score, which is, again, this is based on census data. But again, you can use any type of data. I can also use different benchmarks for different departments. So if I want to have a company initiative that, say for the marketing organization, I want to focus on hiring more veteran status, perhaps more males or females, I can change what those benchmarks are by department. So again, this shows me, and obviously the red number shows we're well below the 100, the value of 100, which would match the benchmark. And then the green numbers show us where we're above. So this is a great way. We've shown this, and the D&I folks really appreciate how simple it is to follow all these roll-ups and also how they can set goals within this chart as well. And then the last one that we covered last time, so just a summary, is we do a lot around organizational modeling, so future planning exercises. And the basic concept, and there's 5 use cases off to the left from org design through budgeting. The concept is you have a snapshot of your organization in our solution, and you can drag and drop, change reporting relationships, change departmental structures, change any attributes like person's salaries. If you're going to do a 3% salary increase, what would that do to the overall budget? If I want to add 2 or 3 new positions, or if we want to do some leveling of our spans of control, and I want to make sure that there's no departments that have a head count more than 10 direct reports, I can then see where those are highlighted, and I can add additional departments to spread those out. I think Corey has a question. Corey, did you have a question? I know you're on live. No? Okay.
No, I'm good. Sorry,
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem, no problem. So again, very popular, and again, the concept here is you can work in a collaborative environment. It's a sandbox, private sandbox. You can share and collaborate with others to make changes. follow the metrics, the financial changes that happen, as are shown in this view. There's some financial data off in the side panel to the left, tracking both budgets and head counts and position counts, and budgets versus expenses by org unit. So all this can be tracked in a rapid prototyping fashion. So those are the 3 use cases that we covered last time we spoke. So let's instead, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and we're going to just dive in a little bit on 2 specific use cases for today. And then I'll demonstrate to you at the end how we use our solution in a live environment to show you how we actually work in this area. So the first one is the aging workforce and using tracking retirement eligibility for the workforce. So let's talk a little bit about that. So first of all, the key demographic trends today. There's 3 key trends today, and that is not only the aging workforce, which we're going to highlight and focus on today, but also culturally. There's the rise of the millennial generation and the challenges that exist there, and also a much more culturally diverse population as well, which actually is going to go into some work that we're doing, John Bruner and myself, to update our D&I perspective, bringing in some cultural factors into that whole D&I report, which we're excited to be looking forward to doing. But let's focus on the aging workforce today, and let's see why that's an area of growing concern for organizations today. So the headline is that our silver tsunami is already here. We've got 10,000 baby boomers, which I fall under, that are falling under within this time span, are turning 65 every day, and that's going to happen through 2030. That applies to me. I'm gonna also fall into that category by 2030. So 10,000 a day are turning 65. And then 1 out of 4 will qualify as part of what's called the aging workforce. And if you look at the bottom, there's a nice little graphic that I pulled that shows from BizGov again, that shows how those numbers have changed. So if you look at the infographic from 1994 to 2024, that person, that little tiny person at 11.9%, that's age 55 or over, they've grown up and they now are taller, surpassing everybody else at 24.8%. Age 55 or over. So the numbers aren't lying, and we know very well already, specifically in the manufacturing sector and public sector, these are 2 industries that we're finding are in particularly having challenges around managing an aging workforce as far as where those trends are hitting quite, I'd say, the most pronounced manner. When we have these studies going on, we always look, it's very popular. The analysts want to get the corporate outlook. So the analysts are going to pull their pool of HR specialists. They're going to talk to the CEOs, CFOs out in the world, and they're going to do some survey management, and they're going to get some results that they can share in the reports. And I think this is a pretty telling report from Willis Towers Watson, and that's 83% of employers have a significant number that are at or nearing retirement age. And this was a survey, by the way, of comprised largely of large organizations, employee size, 5,000 or more. The companies felt that 50% of them feel they have a good understanding of when employees are going to retire, which means they're doing some reporting around this already. But when the reporting can turn to action, that's where it's getting away from them still. So those that are, so 80% say that managing the time of the retirements is critical. But out of the 80%, only 25% say they have programs to do this effectively today. So that just tells everybody right off the bat, doing the numbers, that there is a pronounced need that's been expressed based on these surveys with executives. They know it's happening. They know they have to deal with it, but they're not yet in a position to know quite how to deal with it yet. So what we like to do is step in and help provide those informed decisions that can take place. So what can we do as a solution vendor to help answer some key questions around helping with that management? So we want the companies to be able to answer yes to all these things, or feel comfortable that they have these things well under control. Can they measure the retirement eligibility across the organization? Are they able to attract and retain younger employees? And that gets into some program considerations, obviously. Can they measure the years of service of their employees? Again, that gets into such things as mentorship programs, or looking at those that are retirement eligible, where there's intellectual capital involved, where they, as mentioned in that survey, companies and management they do try to do what they can with flexible plans, and that's another strategy, is more flexible benefit packages for the aging workforce so they'll stay on longer. So that's a pronounced effort that happens, but of course you do need to have the data of where is your aging workforce and perhaps what is their years of service and performance ranking, et cetera, as well. So all these questions, I won't read through them all. You can see them all here for yourselves, but these are all things that we want to help assist companies with. So in that regard, I'm going to show you an example illustration before actually we'll go into a demonstration at the very end. So what I'm going to be showing you in a moment is this view in a live demo using our solution. What we're basically doing here is we're showing by departmental level. We're showing overall, just give me a quick overview, what's the percentage of employees eligible to retire in 5 years? What's the percentage for each department? And notice at the top, Charles Lee, 40% of his department will be retirement eligible within 5 years, and then under his span for those 4 departments, you can see the breakout of that. Also for each departmental box, you can see within eligible to retire today, within 1 year, 2 to 3 years, etc. You can see the raw number of employees that are eligible to retire within a certain period. And then I'll talk a little bit more about what's in this org chart when we get to the live demo. So we're going to save the live demo portion for last. So I'm just going to do one more use case, give a little bit of a background on how we approached it, and then we'll go straight into the live demo. So the next one is talent, flight risk, and succession. So this is an area we've done some focus in recently. It's a new perspective that we've been working on. So first of all, we took a look at ways to spot employee flight risk. So did some research, talking to clients, basically some informal polling and some research, told us basically these are some of the barometers one can consider to help come up with some kind of formula or expression to help do some predictive analysis of who we feel might be more prone to employee flight risk than others. And again, there's a whole wealth of different factors. Some of you, I think, professionally will be able to relate directly to some of these major points for sure. And of course, there's others as well. This is not meant to be a fully comprehensive list of reasons, but just some of the key points where what we want to do is provide some insights into some of these areas. So what we did specifically, and we have sort of a snapshot here to the right, what we actually did in our solution, but first on the left. For our example, and again, our example is flexible, we can have many factors involved. For our example, we decided to focus in on 4 key factors and 4 factors only, just as a way of demonstration of this use case around flight risk. We focused in the areas of job tenure, performance, salary, and retirement. And again, retirement eligibility is obviously something I've already talked about for a few minutes. So we already know about there's a concern around retirement eligibility does lead to flight risk with work-life balance decisions. So those are the 4 that we focused on. And if you look here to the right in the screenshot, those are the measurements we used for every employee that we measured. We looked at their data based on the data that was made available to us, and we formatted it. We have formulas that we calculate in the background, different percentages, different weighted values. I'm going to talk about that here in a moment. And we calculated the overall flight risk for every employee based on those 4 measurements. And again, how we did that, to give you a little more details on that, here are the 4 areas, and this is actually the formula that we use. So these 4 things were all equally weighted together. So for job tenure, to take that as an example, what is the considered risk? And again, these numbers could be always different, and you can even change them by a certain department structure or focus, if you will, if you feel there's underlying data that supports, a higher a change in job tenure. But here are the numbers that we had. So 30% potential flight risk if you're in your first year. If you're 4 years or more, the flight risk is quite a bit higher. Looking at performance, notice that on the tail ends, it's quite high. Whether you're a low performer, you're unsatisfied, you're called what we call a disengaged employee, which is the popular term that's been used for years. A full 90% is added to the weighted formula scale to calculate flight risk. But then on the other hand, notice for the high performer, why are they at 90%? Well, there are cases documented that high performers, that they feel they don't have a clearly defined career path as a high performer. That's also where poaching can happen, or they'll be looking for alternatives. The interesting one about job tenure, and you can see a lot of this from the typical LinkedIn job profiles. If you look at folks' experience, right around that area of 2 to 4 years, there's quite a bit of turnover, quite a new, people that don't just change positions, but they change companies. So again, all these numbers, of course, can be used in different ways. Compensation and salary is an absolutely key area, and this is one that's also used for compliancy reasons. So compliancy, federal government obviously looks at payment equity or compensation equity. We're also using it in this case to predict potential for flight risk based on individuals, what their job level is, and how their salary compares to others based on their years of experience and job type, etc. And then of course retirement. So these are factors that went into the calculation. So here's just a brief overview. I'm going to show you this org chart live, but here on the left side is that basic view showing you a breakdown using stoplight colors: red, yellow, green, whether you're good, in the middle, or in trouble, and certain attributes for your overall department. And then at the individual employee level, they have a little colored stripe along the side of that employee box showing you whether they're green, yellow, or red, what their flight risk is based on the levels. And then I picked Daniel Baker in this case, so we focused on Daniel Baker so we could see his overall flight risk is 33%, which is not bad at all, so that's considered good. So he had a green color associated with him because he's considered a low flight risk, and then the various factors involved. And then we're also showing successors, possible successors to the CEO is shown on the side, showing performance and years of service with the company and flight risk as well as recommended successors. So that's just a quick look. I'm going to pause for a moment because I'm going to switch over to the live demo to see if there's any general questions before we go to the demonstration. So I'm going to pause.
I don't think I've muted everybody. I hope I haven't.
All right, so let me just pull this over. I believe this is the screen I'm on, so I might have to do a refresh. So I'm going to refresh now. Let me know if you see the screen okay coming up. I just have to refresh the screen to make sure it's displaying properly.
John, this is Neil. From the standpoint of working through the live demo and so on, I have two, I'll call addendums to the use case. I'd love to see how easy it is. So I'll test you on that one a little bit. But any questions from the audience? Like I said, I hope I didn't mute everybody. I'm sure I did.
No,
I opened them. Okay, we're good. Everybody's being very behaved today.
Yeah, I gotta make sure I'm making it interesting for everybody so they're engaged. So again, we're now looking at a live view, and I mentioned earlier we can have a dashboard view as well. So there's other ways we can consume this data. So we're looking at a high level of the departmental numbers based on those eligible to retire within 5 years. So right off the bat, I have a little bit of concern here of an aging workforce because I noticed for certain departments, well, overall for the company, I'm 41%. That to me is of concern, number one. Number two, I see there's 3 groups here out of 4 that are, at 40% or just above 40%. So that's another big concern I have. I can see the breakdowns, the number of employees for each span, for each department. I can see how many employees are in that area and what the numbers are behind these percentages. So what I can do now is I can easily navigate. If I want to navigate through the structure, I can do that. And notice I can see some numbers here. I'm getting very scared with these numbers, again, based on these departments. But now I want to flip the script a little bit. Let's take a look at this organization on a weighted scale perspective. In other words, I only want to look at the population of those eligible to retire in 5 years only, not anybody else, just those eligible to retire within 5 years. That is driving this gray big number metric. So I'm going to turn on a weighted scale on this chart. As a matter of fact, let me go back to the top to do this. Let's see how the numbers change now and if it tells a different story. So now when I look at those eligible to retire in 5 years and where they are positioned in my organization, I have a concern, a more pronounced concern for Donald Walker's organization. Why? He's at 80%. 80% of all those eligible to retire are all contained within Donald Walker's span of control. That is my area of concern. That is where I'm going to drill through and take a closer look at where these numbers are coming. And it's Charles Lee's organization, obviously. That's where I'm seeing some concerns. What I can also do now is that's just looking at it from a departmental level. Notice that there's a lot of effort by companies today to engage employees at an individual level. As that survey mentioned, one effective strategy is to manage those eligible to retire soon, do more for work-life balance, more flexible benefit programs. And to do that, I need to know which of those employees are out there that I need to talk to. I can't do that from this view. I have no idea who those employees are. I'm just seeing some numbers of where they're propagating right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this view. I'm going to hide some details to simplify the view, because I'm going to change the focus of this evaluation onto the employees themselves. So what I'm looking at right now is I'm looking at each individual employee, and for each employee, we're seeing how many years they have until they retire. In some cases, I see negative numbers, which means they're over the age of 65 already. We use 65 as the retirement age to calculate how many years until they retire. And then you see the red number 1 for Steve Evans. It's red because he's almost ready to retire. So I can navigate this chart, and I'm going to go up a little bit. I'm going to go actually to finance group because there's going to be more folks here. So here I can get an idea of years to retire. Notice how it's sorted in the chronological order from what we see most able to retire today versus later. We then show the years of service in the right corner, so the number of years the person's been with the company. If they have a little blue icon with a star, notice that they're a high performer. So the flexibility I have with the solution, if I just want to work on a program, I just want to concern myself with engaging those employees that are going to be retirement eligible in 3 years or less. Notice I can apply a filter to the view. So this is great for an HR business person or for any department head that's looking at this to quickly find out and visualize, where are those individuals sitting in my organization right now. So then just a quick example of what we can do with retirement eligibility. I'll stop.
So,
no.
I was going to say, John, let's ask the audience if they've got some perspectives on that. Anyone have a question for John on this one? I always like to go and let the audience ask first. If not, I'll just quiz you. I know that you are going to be somewhat hamstrung with the amount of data that you put into this example.
Exactly,
but you started showing this, and I really love this view right now, where you've got the high performers identified with the blue box. Yes. One of the things I would want to understand from an HR standpoint, or even for a departmental management perspective, is so within, as I'm looking at this chart in accounts payable, 2 of my people, one is already eligible for retirement and another one's coming up in a year. One of those people are a high performer. And I'm looking at that whole line of high performers or hypos in my department, and I'm not going to pay much attention beyond the 5-year, but the idea of bringing the right person in from a succession or hiring perspective is exactly, it's kind of the reverse side of this one that says, okay, let me make sure these guys are doing well, etc. We keep them around and so on. But in truly planning, I would want to replace Brian Wright and Daniel Hall with either a highly trainable person in the next year that would take their place as top performers, or maybe I just bring somebody up through the succession planning of these other folks, the 15 and 17, they're high performers, and maybe these guys are a little further down the line in terms of the organization chart, but I want to promote them. So this has value much more than just the retirement perspective. If you really, I'm being an information junkie that I believe I am, this tells me a lot. And what I like about it is that it's visually compelling. It's asking me to ask more questions and looking at that. That's what I find that the visualization seems to do, is that if I'm doing this right, I'm getting more questions that I'm bringing to the table in this chart, and it's getting people to look deeper into the information. So this is very cool stuff. I personally like it. So I'm curious, anybody else in the audience have perspective they wish to share? Anything that you're seeing that I'm not seeing in here, but I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nov. I'll definitely pause if anybody wants to add anything to that. So you've basically demonstrated what would be to us is what our the benchmark we're shooting for in working with our clients, and that when they use the solution and we work with them on their business requirements. So obviously we're working hand in hand with the client to create these perspectives. This is a template we've created based on just our own intellectual capital and years of experience in attacking this type of a problem, what type of data they want to see. But the conversation you just had really with yourself about, I care about Daniel Hall, and just that internal conversation you are having, that's the kind of conversations we want to drive for organizations. You know, these, and really from more of an informed conversation, because the things you're raising, the only reason you were able to raise those questions is because you're informed now to talk about Daniel Hall, talking about he's a high performer. And then also an interesting conversation that you or the organization are going to have is, well, Brian Wright's already eligible to retire, but he's a low performer. Now, are we going to use him as a mentor as a low performer? Or is this an is this an opportunity to replace him now? I mean, what is happening here? And this is a very valid case. A lot of companies talk about this. This is documented about those that basically, I wish I'm losing the word for it, but it's almost like familial rights, that you've been with the company so long since the beginning that you're still with the company after maybe many things have changed.
Entitlement.
Yeah. Well, maybe Brian Wright was, let's say he was, and not to point fault at Brian, let's say Brian could have been, if we talk about Brian, I might come in negative, and Nov, you might be telling me, Brian is the stalwart of our company. He's been with us 22 years, and we really haven't given him some professional development opportunities. And our company's changed so much. He lost his business unit 3-4 years ago, and maybe he's disengaged. But in the intellectual capital he holds, maybe this low, there's something behind this rating. There's another story. But again, we're talking from more of an informed approach that we know who to talk about based on the metrics and things we're seeing here. And as you noticed while you were talking, I was clicking here to change sort of the sorting out the values so we could see what we could focus on. And what you said too, I'll show in the next example. Wanting to see successors, I'll show that.
Right. I'm curious about if any of your clients have used this from the perspective of what the kind of a salary hit I will take when people are retiring out of here. In a sense, and I'm not a comp person, so if anybody in the audience has got a differing opinion, please let me know that. I'll learn through the process. But the idea is this retiring population represents this kind of compensation hit.
Right.
They're going to move off to a retirement plan. We're working on that. But so is that my budget for replacement over the next year? Or am I going to say, gee, I was paying them X dollars, but at hiring new people, I'm going to have to pay Y dollars. And in a sense, it's thinking about how you're taking your resources and reallocating them and either lessening them, broadening them, or at least planning for what you're going to have to do. To me, this is almost like a comp tool in its own right.
Yeah, so that's actually a great segue. So I'm switching now to the talent flight risk succession chart. So you're absolutely right. You have to define what these numbers are going to mean. So when we do estimated leaving cost, it's what you just said, Nov. It's absolutely what you just said. So as an organization, if you're consulting with an organization, you need to gather those business requirements, and you need to ask the question, how do you calculate leaving cost or replacement cost? What are you looking at to calculate that? And that is absolutely something we do, and that is absolutely something that is not standardized by every company. Companies have different approaches to how they want to measure costs. The good news is it's quantitative. It gets the CFO's attention, and that's the good news, that it is quantitative data and it is financial. So what I've done here is I've just switched to a risk dashboard. So to your point, you sort of gave me a segue without, I think, seeing this perspective before, that I'm looking at where we see the highest replacement costs based on a certain segment of the population, which I can focus in on. And also, by the way, we have an organization here from the business requirements that has 6 major locations in the United States. So let's go ahead and give them sort of a risk assessment for each of those 6 locations on a map for those 6 offices, how they're looking. And also by job level, how are they looking as far as risk based on each job level for of those organizations. So that's something that we're doing here. So what we're doing here at a simple level is we're calculating flight risk. So again, I'll bring in a talent profile of Daniel Baker. And the way we calculate flight risk, we spell it out so everybody understands. We've got 3 factors in play here. We're not showing retirement eligibility because Daniel Baker is of a young age that it does not factor in at all. So we're not using it in our calculation. So we have a very flexible formula-based engine that we can use 3 factors as a calculation, or we might use 4 factors as a calculation. In this case, there's no retirement risk at all for Daniel given his age, so we're only looking at 3 other factors. So we've got tenure, performance, and salary risk. And if you recall, those are the things I was showing you earlier. I took these screenshots from that slide before where I showed you where are we coming up with these individual measurements. And then to look at it more holistically by department, this is showing for each department, how do we rank for each of these 4 areas? Flight risk or compensation risk or retirement eligibility risk. So each department's getting rated for that. We can also find out what we have for successors. So if we're going through, again, for a certain position and we want to see what successors might rank for certain positions, we can go ahead and pull those people in. Again, the talent profiles there. Another thing I like to show real quickly here is we can switch to a 9-grid box, which is very popular. Could be a 12-grid, 16-grid. So here we're seeing overall where our talent lays in the organization. I can turn on modeling and I can move people around to categorize them differently. I can also get an overview of how we're looking in terms of percentages of where our talent resides. And it could be based on whatever department I'm looking at, how these people look as far as potential successors. So again, we're able to marry and pull all this data together to answer the question, which you had earlier, No, was like, okay, do I have a flight risk somewhere? Yes, I do have flight risk. Okay, then who do I have to look for? So Anthony Wilson, VP of HR, who can I bring in as potential successor there? And then look at the various factors and look at it if I want through the 9-box assignment as well. So that, in a nutshell, we're really taking that retirement eligibility exercise I went through a few minutes ago, and we're now combining retirement eligibility with 3 other factors toward that contribute to flight risk. So now we have 4 factors that are coming into play to help us understand what might be transpiring within our organization.
I'm going to second guess that maybe a couple of individuals in our audience today are doing work in amassing a lot of information for, let's say, board reports or senior management reports on some basis. What I like about this, and I'll just say it from my own perspective, I would rather go into a board meeting with this kind of data for 2 reasons. Number one, it's highly presentable, easily understood. Not that people on the board are not smart enough, but it's certainly a lot more easier understood. But what I really like about it, and you've shown it already a number of times, in doing a deeper dive and changing parameters quickly, I may be able to answer questions by the board or senior management on the fly, as opposed to saying, I'll have to get back to you after this. I'll take the question, I'll go get you another report.
Yeah.
So you've amassed the data behind it. You've presented in one manner, but like I say, you change a couple of parameters and show it again. And oh wow, that like I say, I think a good analytics and analysis raises more questions simply because people are understanding the data and it's bearing further investigation. But to be able to do it dynamically, that's great.
Yeah, and dynamically we need to do it, No, because this could be a bit of an eye chart for somebody if they're just trying to find specifically who the high-risk employees are, because I've got a lot of employees and incumbent positions on this chart that frankly aren't at high risk. So again, using our technology, we can simply go ahead and just remove everybody else and just focus in on the high-risk employees. So here's that very clear chart I'd feel more comfortable with for sure bringing to management, because I need to talk to management about finance, and I need to talk about how we have flight risk among certain individuals here that could be part of our top talent as well. So again, I've got a simple view here just based on a few check marks, But again, I can go as deep into the data as I want just by, you know, a few seconds changing the parameters. And again, this is all based on the business requirements. The charts can look a lot different for each company based on what they want to see. I could have maybe 6 parameters and different formulas going on and different ways to view the data. But again, this gives us a good overall sense of how things are looking overall for the organization.
So I will speak to the TRC very quickly and say, for those of you who are doing this and want to make your VP or senior VP or CHRO really look good, a tool of this nature, I'm not selling the Ingentis, but the idea of data visualization, allowing the representative of human resources to go into a board meeting and say, I'm presenting data, but I'm here to do the analysis, and if you will, continue to show you the value of this data that we're collecting in all of our systems and visualizing it. That's exactly what it is that the HR people have been looking for. You know, the seat at the table, which I hear all the time. You have a seat at the table. The problem is you're being asked, okay, now give me a headcount report. Okay, next, let's go into the CFO report. It's not exciting, but the moment you start demonstrating this kind of flexibility in data presentation, identifying problems that have both monetary and, if you will, skill impact, and if you will, just kind of an overall impact of the organization, that's exactly where the board and the senior managers take a very great deal of interest in. So let's help our HR people be better, smarter. I love data visualization as a whole, just as a topic. I think it's the way to go. Trying to do a time check here real quickly. We are really close to the hour. So folks, do you have, let's put it this way, questions? You want to see more? I'm happy to keep the meeting open for those who can stay, for those who cannot, and I have other obligations. Again, thank you very much for joining us. And John, I'm sure if you can stay a little bit longer, that's great. Feedback for John, certainly from a product standpoint. Any perspectives that anybody wishes to share?
No, this is, excuse me, this is Victor.
Yes, sir.
And John, my compliments to you. It's very impressive. I love the analytics on it.
Thank you.
You know, my sense is that this is for larger companies. What's your ideal target audience?
Yeah, you're right. We work with companies of all various sizes. Usually it's when you need to get better control of your HCM data, to be honest, when the numbers start getting too big to really manage that well. I'd say the numbers get as low for us, especially for these use cases, around 500 or more. It definitely comes into play. We have some clients, for example, with 300 employees. But, you know, if it's a small company with 30, 40, 50 employees, you know, I would be honest with you, we have another solution that would present a different cost point for, I think, more modest needs, because that data overload's just not happening yet, to be honest. So we have another solution, a more modest approach for that. But yes, for organizations of several hundred, once you get over 1,000 for sure, there's going to be insights for sure based on our conversation, based on our customers that we have. There's a lot that we can help them with when you're getting closer to that 1,000 employee benchmark. Absolutely, yeah. So
what I actually heard is that your ideal client might be as low as 500 or more employees for this product.
Absolutely.
And what's the name of the small company product?
The smaller product is called Orginio. So just for a moment, if I may, I'll just pull it up because you could type this out. It's a free trial. We even give it out for free for, I think, less than 50 employee records. So we never charge. I think I got that right. My colleague will correct me.
Yeah, John will come back to you soon.
yeah, exactly. But here it's a very nice solution. Doesn't get into a ton of calculations because, frankly, you're not going to need them. But we have a very, very nice solution. Very happy to offer this. It's all cloud-based as well. So literally, you can get off the call. You can go to orginio.com. You can start your account, get your flat file loaded, and you can be up and running inside of an hour. And you might not even be charged ever for it. So, which is fine by us. We're happy to introduce you to this solution. It's a very popular. This is a solution we have, by the way, on the ADP platform. We're integrated in ADP, extremely popular. They have obviously a lot of smaller clients as well. They have Workforce Now and Vantage as clients, and we're very happy to offer solutions to them. And besides Org Manager, we also have Org Manager, which works with ADP, obviously. Yeah.
Well, that's terrific. Let me thank you, Nova. I must apologize, but I must bid you adieu.
No problem, and thank you for joining, Victor. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Anyone else? Any other questions on that for John? If not, then I will thank you all again very, very much for attending. There'll be more TRCs coming up. I went away to HR Tech and met a lot of brand new startups, of which are very interesting. So you will see them coming through. Again, thank you all for your support and your interest. John, thank you very much for the demonstration.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon. Take care now.
Thank you. Thank you, Noah. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.